100 years ago, a World Series was played, but I'm not talking about the one between the Pirates and the Washington Nationals. I'm talking about one you probably won't see in your history class. This World Series was a rematch between two of the best Negro League baseball teams at that time, the Kansas City Monarchs and the Hilldale Club. A year ago, the Monarchs defeated Hilldale, winning that year's World Series 5-4 and earning the title of being the best Negro League team. And this was significant because this was the first time that black baseball players were able to play in any kind of World Series tournament, almost 20 years before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. And today, our journey brings us to that rematch to see whether or not the Monarchs could hold on to their title or if they would lose it to Hilldale. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the story of the 1925 Colored World Series. 1925 was an interesting year. It was the year that the first public television transmission was made, the year that The Great Gatsby was published, and the year that A. Philip Randolph organized the Brotherhood of Sleeping Cars, the first black labor union to be recognized by the American Labor Federation. It was also the year when the Ku Klux Klan marched in D.C., and when Hitler published Mein Kampf. And it was amid this tension that this historic World Series was played between two titans of Negro League baseball. And in the 1925 season, they were both at the top of their game in their respective leagues, the Negro National League and the Eastern Colored League. Before the World Series would take place, both teams would have to compete for their league championships. For the Monarchs, this meant fighting through several teams of the Negro National League in a season that was split into two halves. The first half started April 27th and ran until July 8th, and the second half ran from July 11th to September 16th. The Monarchs became number one in the league on May 26th, beating out the American Giants, who started out leading the league, and the Detroit Stars, who were the next team to have the lead. The St. Louis Stars narrowed the lead, but they weren't able to overcome the Monarchs, who won their first half title defeating the Cuban Stars West 2-1 on June 29th. But the Monarchs would fall to the second place in the second half of the season around September, when the St. Louis Stars swept them in 4 games. The Negro National League then scheduled a best-of-9 series, with the Monarchs facing the Stars in a battle that would determine who would advance to the Colored World Series. For this series, which was played in late September, the first 3 games would be played in St. Louis, while the next 3 would be played in Chicago. Chicago became the place that the Monarchs held their home games because the Kansas City Blues were using the Monarchs' home stadium at the time, a practice that was pretty common among some Negro League teams, who would borrow stadiums from major league and minor league teams to play their games. The Monarchs would go on to win the first game 8-6 with the help of Bullet Rogan, who pitched for a complete game with home runs from New Allen, Dobie Moore, and Frank Duncan. The Stars won the second game 6-3 with the help of Roosevelt Davis, Branch Russell, Willie Wells, and Cool Papa Bell. The third game was delayed due to rain and caused the league managers to decide to shorten the series to a best of 7 games rather than a best of 9 games. When the third game was finally played, the St. Louis Stars won 3-2, thanks to home runs from Dewey Creasy and Papa Bell, who also had an RBI double in this game. But Kansas City came back in the fourth game, winning the match 5-4 with the help of Bullet Rogan, who sealed the deal with a game-winning single in the 9th inning. St. Louis won the next game, scoring 2 runs in the 9th inning. The final 2 games of this series was a doubleheader, with the Monarchs winning both of these games with the help of William Bell in the first game and Bullet Rogan in the second, winning the league championship and securing a spot to play in the Colored World Series with a chance to defend their championship title. Hilldale's road to the Colored World Series began with them fighting to win the pennant for the Eastern Colored League, which, unlike the Negro National League, who had a 50-game season, played 70 games that year. Early in that season, Hilldale would take a narrow lead with a 9-2 record that was briefly taken by the Harrisburg Giants. The two teams would duke it out in a 2-game series, with the first game going to Hilldale and the second game being awarded to Harrisburg. The game itself was called due to rain, and at the time it was called, Harrisburg was leading the game 6-2. But despite his win, Oscar Charleston, the manager and star center fielder for the Giants, complained to the press, alleging that the umpires were being more favorable to Hilldale. Specifically, he was against the way that the umpires called the game. This caused Ed Bolden, owner of the Hilldale Club and chairman of the Eastern Colored League, to push back, saying that it was in fact Charleston's team that really benefited from the umpires' decisions. Shortly after this, Harrisburg took the league for a month before Hilldale regained the lead in July. Hilldale continued to widen their lead into early September, and clinching the league championship. They ended their season 45-13, while Harrisburg finished second place at 37-18. With the championships of both the Eastern Color League and the Negro National League having been decided, stage was now set for the second Negro League World Series to commence. Rube Foster announced that the series would be the best 5 out of 9 games, with the first 4 games to be played at the home of the Negro National League champions before moving on to Philadelphia for the next 3 games. There were contingency plans in place in case of rain and laws against working on Sunday that would delay the game. Hilldale's roster was stacked with future Hall of Famers Judy Johnson, Biz Mackey, and Louis Santop, as well as star players in the Negro Leagues like Nip Winters and Tank Carr, who used to play with the Monarchs. The Monarchs roster is filled with Negro League stars like New Allen and Wade Johnston, as well as future Hall of Famer Jose Menendez. But their roster took a major hit when the day before the series began, their star pitcher and future Hall of Famer Bullet Rogan severely injured his leg running it through a needle while playing on the floor with his child. He tried to remove the needle himself and ended up requiring surgery. The Monarchs were also without their utility player, who was bedridden with an undisclosed illness. The first game happened on October 1st, with Hilldale winning this match 5-2. This game was scoreless until the bottom of the 4th inning, when Hurley McNair scored for the Monarchs. Hilldale evened the score in the 7th inning when Clint Thomas scored. The game was tied all the way into the 9th inning, causing the game to have 2 extra innings. Hilldale got the lead in the 11th inning, thanks to a smart play by Biz Mackey that allowed Jake Stevens to score. The Monarchs answered back, ending the inning tied 2-2, and it was in that 12th inning that Hilldale won the game 5-2. It all started when pitcher Bill Drake hit George Johnson, which allowed him to get to first base. Then, Frank Warfield singled to right, which helped Johnson advance to third base. Otto Briggs singled to left and scored Johnson. Soon after, George Carr singled to left, scoring Warfield and Briggs, ultimately winning the game. Kansas City would win the next game 5-3, thanks to pitcher Nelson Dean, who during the game struck out 2 while giving up 8 hits, 3 runs, and 4 walks over the span of 8 1/3 innings. The winning run was scored by first baseman Lemuel Hawkins. Hilldale would win the next game 3-1 after playing for 10 innings. Both teams were scoreless in the first 7 innings until Wade Johnston scored at the bottom of the 8th, thanks to New Allen, who singled to the right, allowing Johnston to score the first run of the game and give the Monarchs the lead. Hilldale answered this in the top of the 9th when Phil Cockrell, Hilldale's star pitcher, scored a run while pitch hitting for Script Lee. The winning runs were scored in the 10th inning by Judy Johnson, who led off with a single, and then moved after Clint Thomas sacrificed him to second before scoring, thanks to Naaman Washington doubling the center, and then Naaman Washington, who scored after Robinson singled. The next game drew the largest crowd of the series, with 7,208 fans attending. Hilldale took the lead early. By the 4th inning, they were up 2-1, and went on to score another run in the next inning. Kansas City also scored in this inning, tightening Hilldale's lead to 3-2. And it was in the 9th inning that Hilldale went on a heater, scoring 4 runs, while the Monarchs were only able to answer with 1. After this amazing win, Hilldale was up 3-1 in the series. Hilldale won their first home game during Game 5 at Baker Bowl in Philadelphia. They beat the Monarchs 2-1, with the game practically being decided in the 4th inning, when Tank Carr hit a solo home run, followed by a pair of doubles from Biz Mackey and Clint Thomas. Clint Thomas's double, a ground ball hit, is what allowed Mackey to score. The Monarchs' only run came at the top of the 6th, when New Allen hit a 1-out double to the fence in center field, followed by Dobie Moore doubling to the right and giving Allen the opportunity to score. Game 6 would be the deciding game of the series, with Hilldale defeating the Monarchs 5-2. This game was originally scheduled for October 9th, but was delayed for a day because of rain. The weather conditions weren't much better the next day, due to freezing temperatures and gusting winds, which greatly impacted the attendance of this game. But despite the cold temperatures, Phil Cockrell was still able to have 6 strikeouts while only allowing 8 hits and 2 runs. Hilldale began scoring in the 4th and 5th innings. They would go on to score 2 more runs in the 6th, and then Biz Mackey hit a solo home run to start the 7th inning. The Monarchs tried to come back, scoring runs in the 7th and the 9th, but it just wasn't enough to overcome Hilldale's 5 runs. And with this victory, Hilldale clinched the series, completing a gentleman's sweep of the Monarchs, who had beaten them last year. This was mostly due to the pitching of Phil Cockrell, Rube Curry, Nip Winters, and Red Ryan, along with the hitting of players like Biz Mackey, Judy Johnson, and Tank Carr. And this wouldn't be the last time that a Pennsylvania sports team came back like this. 100 years later, the Philadelphia Eagles, in the spirit of Hilldale, came back to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. The only other game that Kansas City won was an exhibition game that was held on October the 11th, where they defeated Hilldale 6-1 with the help of pitcher Shet Brewer. Hilldale's comeback victory gave them a reason to celebrate, but not for long, because the team folded 7 years later, with this championship being the only World Series that they ever won. And despite their dominating performance, more people saw their defeat the year prior, as the attendance levels had dropped by 56%, the lowest attended game being the very one where Hilldale won the championship. To make matters worse, the series was also a financial failure. Receipts from this series were more than $31,000 less than the previous series, and the teams felt the brunt of it, as Kansas City only received $822 to split between every member of their team, and Hilldale, for their win, received $1,1233. And for their efforts, each player on the team only received $80, just 6% of the winnings, and realistically meant that each player only received $6.66 a day. In a Chicago Defender article that came out that next year, one Kansas City player was quoted as saying that they could have made more money barnstorming. But why was this? Newspaper reports mostly blame the cold weather for the low attendance. And yet, despite the low attendance and financial disappointments, this series is still an important part of history, detailing how African Americans, despite the intense segregation that they faced out in the world, were still able to come together and build something for themselves. None of the future Hall of Famers in this series ever played in Major League Baseball, mostly because they were already retired or had passed away before Jackie Robinson had integrated the league, which, when you think about it, definitely says something about each of their individual talents, as they were all inducted decades before the MLB began including Negro League stats, making one wonder what could have been. If not for segregation, Judy Johnson and Jose Menendez could have played in the 1925 World Series, which had far more attendees than the Color World Series. Neither America or the MLB was ready for that at that time. But little by little, both the MLB and America have tried to make up for lost time. Well, that does it for this episode of Journey Through Jerseys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like content like this, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode. Again, thank you so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you next time.